In this present era, especially with the rise of technology, we don't necessarily view religion as related to nature. We barely view ourselves as a part of nature or even related to it. We tend to view ourselves as humans as something far more superior than the rest of the mammal kingdom or any other living form. So to think we are even a part of the earth itself is an absurd notion to some, when in fact it is the earth that we came from, and without it we would not be here. We obviously needed it and its resources to survive. Because of the specific climates and environments that were created by the earth, we as humans, as species, were given the prime opportunity to evolve into what we are today. Not only can we physically see how our climates have shaped us through time with such things like race, our environments also may just be the sole core to even our cultural habits. One great thinker who connected the relationship between humans and their environments was a 20th century Japanese philosopher Tetsuro Watsuji, who was born on March 1st of 1889 and deceased by December 26, 1960. Watsuji argues for an essential relationship between climate and other environmental factors and to the nature of human cultures. We are all inescapably environed by our land, its geography and topography, its climate and weather patterns, temperature and humidity, soils and oceans, its flora and fauna, and so on, in addition to the resultant human styles of living, related artifacts, architecture, food choices, and clothing. Watsuji had in mind by climate and how there exists a mutuality of influence from human to environment and environment to human being, which allows for the continued evolution of both. Climate is an entire interconnected network of influences that together create an entire people's attitude and values. Who we are is not simply what we think or what we choose as individuals in our aloneness, but is also the result of the climatic space into which we are born, live, love, and die. Watsuji was convinced that one's environment was central in shaping persons and cultures. Watsuji's interest in religion was as a social phenomenon, that is, in religion as an aspect of the cultural environment. He saw human culture as a product of its environment. The environment of a society helped shape their aspects of life. The way a society's environment worked, they often applied to the aspects of their cultures, including religion. Eastern landscapes consist of mountains and valleys. A connection, intentionally or unintentionally, was made that there was a balance of things. For a mountain to rise, a valley must be created. This positive-negative balance was seen all over throughout the environment, along with cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Therefore, a religion emerged that was based on duality and reincarnation. A main symbol of the popular religion, Taoism, is the yin-yang, which shows that things are connected to each other, balance each other, and together form a circular whole. One of the major religions in the East is Hinduism, which has dual deities, male and female versions, each needing the other to keep the earth in balance. Another major part of Hinduism is the idea of no true afterlife, just reincarnation. Other religions, like Buddhism, also don't hold the idea of an afterlife. They believe in reincarnation, but they seek an escape from it, which is to simply no longer exist. Western landscapes were and are still solely dependent on rivers and water. Vegetation mainly grew near water since the rest of the land was mostly desert. Again, a connection, and intentionally or unintentionally, was made. Water was the giver of life, and life needs water to be sustained. For that life to get the water it needs, the water must come from a main source, which were the mountains, and flows downward. Henceforth, a religion emerged that was based on a top-down model, meaning that for things to work properly, there must be a source of power, and that power was a supreme God, which represents the water. Not all cultures, though, treated the water as if it was a god itself. Instead, they anthropomorphized the sky and created the idea that there was a supreme being who resided above. An example can be seen with the symbol of one of the most popular religions today, Christianity. A cross is a preferred symbol for Christians, mainly because of Jesus' crucifixion, but it also displays the whole top-down model of the religion. God is at the top, with Jesus at the middle intersection, connecting us humans or worshippers at the bottom. Many monotheistic religions emerged in the early forms of religions like Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Other cultures formed a polytheistic religion like in Egypt, Greece, and Rome, which still held a supreme deity and several other inferior deities. The main difference between the East and West cultures based on their environment is easily seen in their creation stories. Since Western cultures tend to have a top-down notion, they view time from a more linear perspective. To them, all time has a specific beginning and end. Western cultures usually have a creation story based on a sole creator. First, that sole creator begins with dividing night from day. Then he forms the sky, the earth, and the oceans, from which then he creates all life. Finally, man is formed from elements of the earth and then breathed into life by the sole creator. The supreme creator usually creates a so-called paradise for men and women to live in, but they must obey his rules, which they don't. Henceforth, they are banished and sent to what we call the present era Earth. Since Eastern cultures are based upon the notion of balance and reincarnation, their sense of time is more infinite. There is no true beginning or end. Everything just cycles through. Eastern creation myths vary, but all are still closely related to the idea of infinite time. In Hindu philosophy, the existence of the universe is governed by the Trimurti of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer, thus creating the cycle of birth, life, death, and then rebirth. In Hinduism, nature and all of God's creations are manifestations of Him. He is within and without His creations, pervading the entire universe and also observing it externally. Hence, all animals and humans have a divine element in them that is covered by the ignorance and illusions of material or profane existence. Buddhism is less concerned with answering the questions like the origin of life, and more concerned with the goal of saving oneself and other beings from suffering by attaining nirvana. The Buddha, regarding the origin of life, has said, "Conjecture about the origin of the world is unconjecturable. That is not to be conjectured about, and that would bring madness and vexation to anyone who conjectured about it." The Buddha also compared the question of the origin of life to the parable of the poisoned arrow. A man is shot with a poisoned arrow, but before the doctor pulls it out, he wants to know who shot it, arguing the existence of God, where the arrow came from, where the universe and or God came from, and why that person shot it, why God created the universe. If the man keeps asking questions before the arrow is pulled out, the Buddha reasoned, he will die before he gets the answers. According to Jain beliefs, the universe was never created, nor will it ever cease to exist. It is eternal, but not unchangeable, because it passes through an endless series of cycles. Each of these upward or downward cycles is divided into 6 world ages. When this reaches its lowest level, even Jainism itself will be lost in its eternity. Then, in the course of the next upswing, the Jain religion will be rediscovered and reintroduced by new leaders called Tirthankaras, only to be lost again at the end of the next downswing, and so on. Many religions and or cultures have a messiah, savior, or some god representing the sun. Horus, Attis, Dionysus, Mithra, Krishna, Amaterasu, and Jesus. Many have similar key aspects to their myths. They are born of a virgin and or around December 25th, crucified or killed, dead for typically 3 days, then resurrected. What may not be the obvious part is that all of these key aspects can be linked to the winter solstice. The winter solstice occurs at the instant when the sun's position in the sky is at its greatest angular distance on the other side of the equatorial plane from the observer. Depending on the shift of the calendar, the event of the winter solstice occurs sometime between December 20th and December 23rd each year in the northern hemisphere, and between June 20th and June 23rd in the southern hemisphere, during either the shortest or the longest day of the year. The word solstice derives from Latin, sol meaning sun, and sistere, which means to stand still. Therefore, winter solstice meaning sun stands still in winter. On the night of the winter solstice, as seen from the northern sky, the 3 stars in Orion's belt align with the brightest star in the eastern sky, Sirius, to show where the sun will rise in the morning after the winter solstice. Until this time, the sun has exhibited since summer solstice a decreasing arc across the southern sky. On winter solstice, the sun ceases to decline in the sky, and the length of the